Hello, everyone. Oh, I'm right in front of the camera. Salah, are you part of the panel? Are you supporting?
He's my service dog, and
Okay, so the panel is as follows. Hillary and her service companion, Salah, Ken, Bethany, and Rory, who are all members of Voices, who are the world of New England Rehab, basically. Without them, the building would crumble to nothing, and who are now world travelers and are going to share their expertise with us. And I'm sorry this wasn't a better introduction.
That was great, thank you.
Yeah.
Hillary.
well, good afternoon and welcome to On the Road. On the road again, traveling with a disability. This workshop will be offering strategies and tips for handling the baggage of disability while traveling. So let's start with introductions from our Brain Injury Voices passengers, where they will share not only who they are, but a little bit about their disability that they journey along with, and emphasize what piece of traveling they will highlight with their acquired brain injuries. Let's start with Ken.
Yeah, when you gesture toward us, I think you have to do this. like a flight attendant. I get that a lot.
Right.
Yes, hello.
I can't do it with both hands, sorry. Anyway, hi, I'm Ken Shapiro. In 2010, following surgery to clip and remove a cerebral aneurysm, I suffered a hemorrhage and stroke, which left me with balance issues and limited mobility on my left side. I require medication to control seizures related to scar tissue, and have developed sleep apnea, which requires me to sleep with a CPAP machine that aids my breathing. These medical challenges warrant special attention when I travel, so that'll be my focus. When I travel.
Okay. I'm Bethany Bryan, and May of 2011, I was in a major car accident. My forehead was ripped open, requiring me to obviously be taken to the emergency room, did CT scan, checked out some other injury issues. Thankfully, my mom was called, and I was living in New Hampshire. She was in Maine. She arrived. Just in time to have the doctor come back and put his hand on my leg and explain, you have a massive brain tumor. I would never have known I had a brain tumor, and that August I was scheduled to climb Mount Kilimanjaro for charity. The phenomenal doctor who stitched my head up, not to be vain or anything, but had little stitches, apologized I wasn't going on my trip and explained, if you don't believe things happen for a reason, you'll know now. He said, I can medically guarantee you, had you not found out about your brain tumor, if you had summited, you wouldn't have made it off the mountain alive. I had brain surgery September of 2011 and was doing pretty good for about a year and a half. Then I had regrowth, and I went through 27 radiation treatments, and as of now, it's every 6 months I need to check. I've traveled solo, and that's what I'm going to be dealing with, is traveling alone with a brain injury with some fun things. I also have chronic pain. Thankfully, it saved my life. Unfortunately, the left side of my face right now as I'm talking to you, I wish I could rip it off. Had to drill through my jaw. Some issues happened. And also I have my fabulous little seat cushion that is, my tushy cushy as she calls it. My tailbone and the horsetail nerves at the bottom of the tailbone was damaged when they took my spine drain out after surgery.
I don't have as dramatic a story as that. I'm Rory Lee.
You know, it gets very competitive sometimes.
All I did was fall in my driveway in March of 2008, knock myself out, fracture a few fingers, and lie in the snow until I finally woke up and decided maybe it was a good idea to go back inside. And I crawled up the driveway, led by my dog, whom I couldn't see, a different dog, not this one. Fortunately, he headed the right direction. I didn't end up at the end of the driveway looking for the mail. And I was, let's say, persuaded to go back to work too early, and started developing problems, and I have post-concussive syndrome. So 2 years after my injury, I had to leave work, and now I'm one of those terrible burdens on society, collecting disability. And I'm going to talk about traveling primarily with a service dog. If you haven't seen her, she's down there. Hillary.
My name is Hillary Zayed. 9 years ago, I was an elementary school teacher, 3rd grade to be precise. I was a passionate horseback rider all of my life and an avid flute player. I came off of my horse in 2006, landed on a very rocky surface, so rocky that it cracked my helmet, not only in the initial fall, but also on the rebound. Previous to 2006, my husband Salah, who I affectionately call my service caregiver. Poor donkey sometimes. He has to carry so much baggage for me.
And we also call him our taxi driver when we're in locations together.
He's kind of like your service Sherpa.
We were always interested in travel. We had many travel plans, and where he grew up in Jerusalem on the other side of the planet, it's important for him and myself to travel to go see his homeland, to visit his family. So therefore, my focus will be on traveling with a caregiver or supporter in this country and abroad, how to travel abroad, utilizing a wheelchair and a backpack. So let's get packing. Because there are so many ways to get around this country and abroad, you can go by car, train, bus, ship, airplane. We have chosen the form of travel to be airplane because that is the most complicated. Everything else you can pretty much change and shift your strategies to accommodate the other forms of travel. All of the strategies and tips we will talk about can be modified or adjusted slightly to whatever transportation you are going to use. However, we're going to tackle that most difficult one of flying. The first and really only lesson is this. Because you know yourself, you plan ahead. Because you plan ahead, you ask for accommodations. Because you plan ahead and ask for accommodations, you limit your stress. You limit your stress because you know yourself. So, different modes of transportation have different issues that come along with them. However, they also have a similar plan of approach when you have a brain injury. And because we will be presenting a lot of information, tips, and strategies we have for you after this workshop, we have a travel brochure which has our 4 components of know yourself, plan ahead, ask for accommodations, and limit stress. We also have a checklist to help you get started on your packing. And thank you to Rory and Ross who have put this all together along with the slides. So let's get started on our journey together. Let's start with know yourself. Rory.
Okay. For those of you who in the back, I travel with a service dog. She's an Apricot Standard Poodle, and she's named Ziva. She's one strategy that I use as a direct result of getting to know my new post-brain injury self. My brain injury left me with what's called left-sided inattention or neglect. I just don't see things that are over there all the time, so I can't rely on whether something's there or not. I also have difficulties with what's called proprioception, knowing where I am in space, knowing if I'm too close to something or not. I have problems dealing with crowds that are very PTSD symptom-like, getting overwhelmed and anxious and shutting down. I also have attention and concentration issues that Ziva has been trained to help me with. So most of the time, unless I get tired, Ziva really is the only noticeable sign of my disability because I just look like a normal person, apparently. Maybe not. You be quiet.
I'll try.
I've learned that for me, haste doesn't make waste. It makes falls. Especially when we're traveling by plane. We always allow ourselves extra time before the flight so we don't have to rush anywhere. And working with Ziva also slows me down because I'm constantly monitoring where she is and keeping an eye on her. You're not allowed to choke during our presentation, Karen.
Karen, grab some of my
Want some
water.
water? For the safety of both Ziva and myself, I never use escalators. I found out shortly after my brain injury, when I was still working and I had to travel for a conference, that I can get on an escalator. I can't get off. It's not very much fun backpedaling at the top. So it's just not safe for the dog either, for her feet. So to save energy, I use elevators whenever possible. Fortunately, Ziva loves elevators. And I only use stairs when I'm traveling as a last resort. Also, to help deal with fatigue, I make sure to get extra rest before I travel and when I get home. We avoid traveling during rush hour if we can, and I also try not to travel when I would normally be napping, which is kind of now, so if I get a little weird, you'll know why. So along with travel-related documents like reservation confirmations and tickets, I also carry a copy of Ziva's current rabies vaccination and her photo ID card that we made for her in my purse and in my phone. You never know what people are going to ask you. To help with overstimulation for me and distraction for Ziva, we sit away from other people while we're waiting, especially in an airport. I sit with my back to the windows, so I'm not looking out at all that activity. I face a wall or a corner if possible, and I bring a book or a magazine or something so I have something to focus on while I'm waiting. Because I have several food intolerances, I make sure to eat before I travel, and I also bring my own snacks because they don't have a lot of gluten-free, dairy-free, no beef, no lamb snacks. And I buy a milk substitute and water for Ziva once you go through security in one of those very expensive airport shops. So an $8 bottle of water and a $20 bottle of soy milk. So you have to be ready for those things. Hillary, what do you do?
Well, it's taken a long time for me to get to know myself, Rory. And after 9 years of trying to get to know myself, I still have difficulties putting a whole trip together. But that's why I have Salah. So point number 1, talk with someone who does know you. I talk with Salah, or if I'm going to be traveling with somebody else, they come in on the conversation too, so they know what to expect. Salah has experience with what I say and do when I'm under stress and how I deal with it or don't deal with it. He understands my sensory issues. He reminds me of how much time it takes for me to plan, to deal with anxiety, and to deal with the recovery. Your someone could be a caregiver, it could be a family member or a friend. And if you're traveling with someone other than those people, be sure to also talk with the person you are traveling with about your disability needs and accommodations. If you travel alone, Bethany will address those issues. But if you're traveling with somebody, let them know everything, because there may come a point where you can just no longer talk. You're just too tired. And so that's what I do. I leave everything to him once we hit the airport. So when I travel, especially by plane, I know I will have mobility issues brought on by my sensory issues. Therefore, we always reserve a wheelchair that is ready for us when we arrive at the airport. We do curbside check-in. So we get to the airport, we do the curbside check-in, there's a wheelchair waiting for me, there's an attendant with the wheelchair. This is because I can't stand for long periods of time. I lose the ability to talk and walk. The attendant will take us right from curbside check-in all the way through the airport, bypass all those lines, get us right to TSA. He carries my information, hands it to TSA or the attendant, and then they shoot us through to the baggage check-in point. I always make sure that I use the bathroom first before we hit TSA, because you never know when you're going to see a bathroom again. You might as well use them when you see them.
And you don't want to go on the plane.
And you don't want to go on the plane, that's right, if you can help. So we utilize we utilize a backpack. And it's really kind of too heavy for me to carry, so hence
Your service animal.
However, it's a great sensory weight When I feel like I'm floating away in the wheelchair because of all the movement, throw that heavy backpack on, sits her right down into the wheelchair. So, what do you pack for when you go on a trip? I have sensory issues, which bring on anxiety issues, so I carry a backpack with the necessary things to address some anxiety. A magazine helps you start to focus down in an area rather than watching people walk by constantly, rather than paying attention to the noise. I bring an iPad. That way I can also focus again on small things that are right in front of me and ignore what else is out there. In order to go through TSA, they ask me if I want to stand up and walk through. I always choose yes, stand me up and throw me through, because if you stay in that wheelchair and you have sensory issues, sound issues, that's the noisiest place in the airport. They're slamming those things down, they're yelling left and right. You want in, you want out. So I bring my cane. I also bring my own pillow, because if you notice when you're on an airplane nowadays, they've cut everything that they can. There's no blanket, there's nothing of comfort on there, so you want to bring your own. I also bring my own pens and pencils in case I lose the ability to talk, and I can kind of, either whisper to them or use that. I have my Bose headphones. They're great for the airplane ride. They're also great in the airport. They cut stuff down. However, I've learned the hard way. Don't wear them until you're finished with baggage. If you put them on before you get to the TSA baggage point, and then you're at the loudest place in the airport, and you have to take those off and put them on the conveyor belt, you'll just find the noise way too much to deal with, even with your earplugs in, if you wear the earplugs too. So I wait, I suffer through the airport, and as soon as we're done with TSA, I have my earplugs already in, and then I put these on top. Just puts me into my own place. For anxiety issues, pack of cards, if I'm up to it. Gum, it's a great thing for anxiety. Just keeps you right there in the present, in your head, right there. Tissues, you never know when you're going to break down and cry from too much sensory input. After you get through TSA, get your water right away. There's nothing worse than being dehydrated. It adds to all those awful symptoms of brain injury. They kind of explode. So keep yourself well hydrated, but not so much that you're going to the bathroom until you get to where you want to be.
It's a fine balance.
It is a fine balance. Sunglasses, reading glasses, healthy snack, Tic Tacs, that's the only thing in here for him. And most importantly, you'll see right on the very front of the backpack, this little front pocket. This is the most important pocket. Inside this pocket, germ killer. You never know what germs are going through that airport. Your medications, and your important information. File of life for medical situations, your passport, your written down emergency phone numbers, your driver's license to get through TSA, your plane ticket, and your itinerary. All in one place, all right in the very front pocket. Easy access. Okay, I think that is. When I arrive at my destination, I'm sure to drink extra water to combat the dehydration and stress from traveling. And Ken, we'll move on to you.
Thank you, Hillary. I've actually found there are a few perks to being a person with special needs when traveling, especially the fact that most airlines will allow someone with a condition or disability to bring 3 carry-on items. A carry-on bag that fits in the overhead compartment, a personal item that you can fit under your seat, and a medical bag. My CPAP case actually acts as that third bag for me since I need to bring my machine with me, but it's also a convenient location to keep a week's worth of prescription meds. I learned the hard way that it's advisable to wash your hands very thoroughly after handling your prescriptions before traveling, because they can register as a false positive as explosive residue.
And have we found this out?
It could have been worse, really. Yeah, it wasn't, I say the hard way, but it certainly wasn't as hard as it could have been. Yeah. It just slowed me down
Just a little bit.
a little bit. On to you, Bethany.
Okay. Since my brain injury, I've traveled by plane, trains, automobiles, and buses too, solo. Oddly enough, for some reason, I decided to do the most hardest one. Let's travel by plane all by yourself. I actually was a travel agent many, many years ago, before the web took over, when you actually needed us folks. I thankfully maintained some of my travel knowledge. Last year, I flew to New York. Again, maybe not the easiest place to travel solo. Thankfully, I was very aware of the city. I had lots of friends, and I was there a lot. One major thing when traveling solo is safety reasons and truly knowing yourself. When we flew to Washington, D.C. as a group to receive our HAVE award, there was a very interesting thing that they have annually, and I left by myself a few days early. Getting there ahead of time was great. I knew I'd need extra rest. One of the most important things of the safety, knowing, again, like what you said, is so important. Ahead of time, if you're able to pre-plan nicely, of course, making sure you can get pre-boarding is so important, as we've discussed. But not all of us have visual head injury, whatever that looks like. I always, thankfully, thank you, Vanna, very nicely, presenting yourself and explaining, I really need to be allowed onto the plane before time. I have certain things, I have chronic pain. I need to make sure that this and my carry-on get on. I also have sensory issues, visual and hearing. For me, making sure that I can be at the window, my left side away from everybody else, all the extra noise, stimulation. If it's a day flight, I'm in the window seat. I get to pull the shade down if I want. I've never been a morning person. So, no, my mom knows and everybody else here knows. Again, you don't like to travel during nap times or during busy times. I try to travel the later times. Knowing yourself for that reason and different reasons, connecting flights. If you can save a few bucks, that's great, but it's really not worth it. Knowing that you need time to rest and knowing that you are going to need help. But I'm traveling solo, so I also need to be, my service dog is my cell phone. One of the things is also making sure ahead of time that your caregiver, your friends back home bringing you to the airport know all of your information, all of your flight times, all of your phone numbers to where you're going to be. Also, sometimes if a friend's picking you up, keeping them well in advance, how you're doing. When I get through the checkpoint, I'm at my gate, everybody knows. When I'm on the airplane, hopefully it's taking off on time. I'm texting on the plane. When I arrive, I let somebody back home, I'm fine, I'll see you in a week. Also, what gate is my bag at and following? And of course now I'm having, memory loss. And one other thing, once you finally get to the gate, once you're through. Step aside. I know you do that for Miss Ziva, but let all the people that really need to go to their business flights and, connecting flights and businesses. Allow yourself a minute, take that sip of water to hydrate, then go on. Just know yourself.
I found that a lot today, even, and not that I travel far to get here, but managing a lot of luggage, because I'm on 2 panels today, and I have a lot of props for both, and then just getting to the bathroom and being patient and waiting for crowds to disperse is best for me.
How about planning ahead?
So let's move to plan ahead. Ken?
They say it's about the journey, not the destination, but the journey is often the least enjoyable part of traveling. And a good amount of planning and preparation can make the trip from home to a comfortable hotel bed that much easier. I have an upcoming family vacation to Disney World planned, and fortunately, we've been doing a ton of prep with the help of many Disney websites to make sure we can get where we want to be, when we want to be, and reserving a scooter well in advance so I'll know I have that mode of transport available to me throughout my time there, not just in the parks, but around the hotels and going out to dinner, will allow me to be an active participant in that trip instead of a lag behind or a bystander. I want to go to witness my kids having fun, and to be exhausted the whole time would not make it that much fun for me or anybody else. I don't know who's next. Yeah.
Bethany?
Oh, okay. Back to me. I cannot stress how important planning and preparation are when traveling in general. Throwing a brain injury into the mix, and there's no such thing as over-preparation. I'm also a dog sitter, so I always have my carry-on or overnight bag stocked. Thankfully, before injury, I tentatively had one packed, but now listing, which when you get the checklist, really, truly helps out. My carry-on, which we'll show you later when we have more stressful ways to pack, get to know all you can about the transportation providers in advance. Phone numbers, websites, like where you're going isn't going to be very overstimulating at all, is it?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I can't
It's
even
okay. I can always have
imagine.
Mickey come and give me a big hug. And
See, and then you'll be
Make it
all
all better.
set.
Make it all better.
Disney has phenomenal websites and all that. But again, hotels, your airline, depending where you're staying, get to know all that. Again, write it all down. Again, have all your contacts know. Get to know about the city transportation. Does your hotel have a shuttle that's going to pick you up and take you back to the hotel? Or do you need to totally figure out in a new city, how do I get a taxi? Where am I going? Make sure you have the hotel, the most important information, where you're going to be staying down. Again, the flight allowing you to have the prearranged seats or not? Do you need special things that you would need to show as to getting on the flight? For me, another thing, depending on when and where you're traveling, being solo, think ahead of the weather or any other possible things that could go wrong and be prepared for them, and it won't be a big deal. Again, no such thing as overpacking. Well, maybe.
Planning is okay, but overpacking is not.
Yes. But again, having your list of medications, and we all carry our, mine is packed, file of life cards, which we will have for everybody. So important to have, again, for people that are going to ask for proof of, do you have a brain injury? Why do you need this? Why do you want to get pre-boarding selected? Also, heaven forbid, something happens, you might need to just go into a walk-in clinic. having all of your information down, phone numbers, people to contact, meds that you're on, dosages, because you're not going to remember your dosages. I've been on various meds for several years now. I need to look. So planning ahead is truly important. And, oh yeah, sorry. Again, making sure the phone, the water, and making sure that you have time to get everything done.
Okay. For planning ahead, in terms of a wheelchair, you book that when you make your airline reservations. So we do that, and we also, because I have the sensory issues, we make sure that we take a nonstop flight. That's, you know, you pay a little more or you have to drive to Boston to get it, but it's well worth the situation of being able to get from point A to point B and not have to deal with what's in between. One of the things that I did not pull out of my backpack, which we take with us every time we go on a trip, is our disability parking tag. You'll want to bring that with you because if you're renting a car or using somebody else's car and you're in some other place, that will help you should you need it for parking. One of the things that we found really interesting one time we were flying, and we always book our seats because I need to be by a window. We arrived and the airline had changed our seats, separated us, put me somewhere in Timbuktu on the aisle, someplace I definitely couldn't. In order to change our seats back to sitting back to each other, next to each other, we had to prove that we had booked our seats when we made our reservations. So, important things to do. Do as much as you can as you're doing on your reservations. I rely on Salah for everything. Once we get into the airport, he kind of takes over. But we both have interesting issues when it comes to making reservations. If you can make a reservation with somebody there to help you, you can find out those little things like, is the flight leaving in AM or PM? One time we messed up and didn't see AM or PM and our flight was at the other end of the day. But if you're with somebody, you're more likely to catch those little things. I rest for several days prior. I design my napping during the travel, so I know when I reach such and such a place, I'll be napping, then I'll have my dinner, or whatever. You know, I actually schedule in those sort of things. In terms of going to a foreign country that you haven't been to, ask around. You'd be surprised at how unaccommodating a foreign country can be. Salah and I had a goal to go to Paris. It was our lifelong goal. We decided to go, and it was interesting because Paris is not required by law to have accommodations. This is an old city where everybody walked upstairs and walked downstairs. Even in the Louvre, you have to walk upstairs and walk downstairs. Well, we brought a wheelchair with us. The airline knew it. So they disembark everybody on the plane, shove them into a bus. They order a special bus for me and my husband and my wheelchair.
Darn.
I know. Well, it didn't turn out that good. They finally drive us to the air terminal where we are faced with this huge flight of stairs in which he has to carry this heavy wheelchair and I have to walk up the stairs. In an airport, you would think they'd have better accommodations or an elevator, but no, they are not required to. So ask around for people who have been to the country and have seen it before you go. A lot of times in these airports, in international airports, you walk for miles. Oh my gosh, walk, 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 walk. You never see a bathroom, by the way. You just walk, walk, walk. So do your wheelchair thing because you'll be exhausted if you don't. Okay. The bottom line to everything that I have to say about traveling in a foreign country or this country and in terms of a wheelchair is take all accommodations. You may be feeling good now, this is a good period for you, and you think, oh, I can do that. Don't be the hero, because if you go down with your neurofatigue or for whatever, and you can't stand in that line, it is so hard to get a wheelchair while you're in that airport. If you reserve it before, maybe you don't need it, but use it, you're in much better shape if you do that. Rory?
Well, just like traveling with children, which we don't have, but I have lots of nieces and nephews, and I remember being one of 7, and I know it was a lot of clobber for my mother to haul around. Traveling with a service dog requires some extra planning. One important thing we do is find out where are the dog relief areas in the airports you're going to be in, because they have to go. We found an app called Where to Go, which helps with that if the airport has a relief area. Sometimes they don't, and you have to go back out all the way, to the parking area or something. We also try to get direct flights, but that's not possible on a really long trip like to Las Vegas, where we went a couple of years ago. So we were very happy that we knew when we got to Newark where we were supposed to take Ziva so she could relieve herself. Although the ADA says that Ziva and I have to be tethered by no more than a 4-foot leash at all times, TSA doesn't like that idea. They insist that they screen her separately from me. So I made a non-metallic, it's all plastic and cloth, leash, and now I really feel like the airline stewardess. A short leash and a collar, so that when I have to take off her collar, her vest, put all that stuff in the bucket to go through the screening, I can put this on her and she still feels like she's working and she's under control. And if something or someone spooks her and she goes rushing away, I have something to grab other than her.
Does she double as a flotation device?
I think probably for a certain period of time she would, but then she'd get tired.
Well, poodles are water dogs, though.
They are water dogs, but she's actually, we've never seen her swim, so I'm assuming she can swim.
Ziva
I also do my laundry and pack a couple days ahead of time, if at all possible. And she has her own travel needs. If we're traveling on land, she actually gets her own bag with her food and things in it. So I gather items ahead of time, and I get her stuff together too. So I have her treats, and I have her extra vest, because you never know when something's going to break, or we might, she might not match my outfit. You never know.
Ziva's personal little bag.
Right, this is her personal bag, actually. I have her
No
little...
solicitation, please.
her little water cup, and usually have separate water for her because I often have to pour it back in and I don't feel like drinking it after she's... I love you, Zira, but not that much.
Does the water expand and contract too?
Maybe. Depends on temperature. I take her little tushy wipes, yeah.
I have a question, because the TSA has a restriction on water.
You have to get it after you go through.
Okay.
You have to buy it once you get through security, yeah.
And she gets her own little puppy bottle too.
She does, she
I've
does.
seen proof of this.
Yes. So I have her little tushy wipes and her waste bags with me, and her mat, which she's lying on right now. And I also take a sheet or a lightweight bedspread because she naps with me, so I cover up any bed that we're staying in so there's no doggy paw prints or anything like that. Another question?
Now, I hope you take that with you, like if you're going on a boat as well.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, she's actually been in a boat, yes. And because I know that travel's gonna be extra tiring for her and for me, I try not to have any other appointments scheduled for a few days before and after I travel. I take my medications with me in little bags that are labeled as AM or PM, and I keep the AM separate from the PM, and I have color-coded little, sunrise, sunset. When I'm going through security, I put them into my special little medical pouch, which I got from New England Rehab. And once I'm through security, they go into this other special little container, which then goes in my purse, and they're always with me. There's nothing worse than getting separated and realizing, oh, it's time to take my medication. Where's my baggage? I don't know where it is. And I also take my handicap parking tag if we're going to be driving at all. I try to make sure our luggage has wheels or is like a backpack that you can wear. If I'm going to be alone with Ziva at any time, if I'm traveling alone or if Ross has to go do something, I make sure that I can handle the luggage that I'm left with. And we also try to avoid checking baggage and take everything carry-on. So we've learned to pack a lot lighter than we used to. Asking for accommodations.
Okay. You've made it through the airport since you were very well prepared that we've explained to you how to do. Call to let everybody know you've made it through. Of course, you'll be, I'm sorry, that just got me. For safety reasons, traveling solo, once you arrive at the hotel. I, in advance, always prefer to not have a ground level room. I also, for sensory reasons, I always request if I can have a room that is not facing, if they have a very highly lit parking lot, or if you're in a big city, trying to have it not facing the major roads or any attractions in the area. My light sensitivity, again, also having the light, full blocking light packs. I also have learned to carry a simple clothespin. The blinds that never fully quite shut in the hotel room that always are coming down right onto your face. That is always in
Good
my
idea.
check bag. I always request, if possible, once I'm there, because you'll need to always reconfirm, if I can have a room away from the elevator, sound issues. If there's a lot of conferences going on, can I be away from that area? Again, also, since I have my jaw pain, I am not able to chew food on the left side. I can do it pretty well on the right, but I have a lot of protein shakes. I, again, need to be hydrated, so I always request a refrigerator, a small refrigerator, if there isn't a kitchenette in the hotel. Also, what happens if there isn't a restaurant? Nicely ask the concierge, where's the closest grocery store? And just in case, while you're at it, where's the closest pharmacy? You never know what you might need. Heaven forbid you forget to pack something. It's good to know around the area.
Or they lose your luggage,
Oh,
as they
yes,
did in
that's
Las
always
Vegas,
fun.
and we had to
Yes.
buy everything.
That's why we've all come pretty prepared of properly doing your carry-on. If you also have appointments in the meeting, in the area or meetings, do they have a shuttle that could take you there, or are you going to have to rely on taxi? Because of that, always bring lots of singles and small bills. Also, I ask if I can have a later checkout. Again, I'm not the morning person, and especially if you, in this new area, no matter how well you've pre-planned, you really are going to need more rest than you're used to. The other thing is, on the last day, you need to check out even late because they graciously gave it to you. What if your return flight isn't a night flight? What am I gonna do? Or if you have something you wanna go to a museum, go get lunch, ask them if they have a room that they can store your baggage in so that you don't have to worry about that. Then it's also nice to come back, again, use the hotel restroom, more room than in the airport, and now you can function from having that day and getting prepared to go home. Again, taking the shuttle to the airport, text my contacts, and now you're back en route to your less stressful ride home.
That's me.
No, that's me.
Oh,
That's my cue. There are
oh,
two
you're
types.
right.
Don't you know Hillary's always right?
I'm always right.
Right, Salah?
He's ours.
There are two types of accommodations to think about when you're planning ahead. Asking for accommodations when you can, for example, for airline situations, like making your reservations, requesting the wheelchair, getting your seat next to the window or wherever. The hotel ones that Bethany just spoke about, but there's also accommodations that you can take care of yourself, that you don't have to ask for. And those are the ones that I think of in a separate little suitcase up here. Is that they no longer on the airplane have pillows for you or blankets if you get cold. There's very little to eat. There's a lot of things that have been stripped away, as you know. And so I carry I wear very comfortable shoes that are easy to get in and out at TSA, but also taking them off on the airplane and putting on a pair of cozy socks. You know, those little comforts, bring a jacket that will also work as a blanket on me to keep me warm in case the airplane gets cold. Bringing the blow-up pillow for the neck rest. Those sort of little things add to maintaining whatever energy that you have stay with you. Again, we request the wheelchair before we take flight, and we request the certain seats, and then get off at curbside baggage. I want to stress that the attendants usually are just wonderful people, and it's really important to tip them. They take good care of us from the front door all the way to the place that we sit and wait for the plane, and then they come back when it's time to board and bring you down to the airplane door. So you are well taken care of by your attendant of the wheelchair. If you have to go from, if you have to transfer a flight, or even when you finish your flight, when you land, your wheelchair will be right there as soon as you come out of the airplane door. Your name will be on it. There'll be somebody there for you. If you've reserved a wheelchair, they make sure that they get that wheelchair to the door, get you in the wheelchair, and say you have another flight to catch and you're running late because the airplane was running late, they have walkie-talkies and they contact the airplane and say, I have Hillary Zayed with me, she's in a wheelchair, and the plane will actually wait because they know you're in the airport. They'd rather take off with you because of TSA stuff than without you. So they will wait. I mean, how good is that? Try and do that on your own. In terms of going overseas, the strategies I use for overseas, the airports that we've been to, use the bathroom on the airplane a half hour before you get off, because seriously, you can be in lines for hours and never see a bathroom. And it can be stressful out there. A lot of times there's foreign languages. A lot of times there are attendants in the airport with guns. You know, there's just a lot of things that you don't see here in the United States that can just make you nervous or a little stressful. So take care of whatever needs you have. Make sure you have your water and a healthy snack, and that you use the bathroom, and that you're sitting in your wheelchair, and that you can kind of close down in whatever way that you need to protect what little energy you might have left. I'm going to hand it over to Rory here.
Okay. Well, traveling with a service dog, she's sort of an accommodation. She's a tool. She's like a cane. But we always make sure to let the airline and the hotels know that we have a service dog. Most hotels have special rooms set aside either for pets or for service dogs, and they're usually on the ground floor and they're usually close to an exit, so it's a lot easier when we have to deal with the dog there. And we tell them that as a courtesy because it makes the whole thing easier for us. After the flights are booked, we will ask for, I need an aisle seat. Ross likes to sit by the window, but I can't deal with the window, and I need to feel like I can get out. I have this claustrophobic thing. And we usually are placed by a bulkhead because there's a little more room there for Ziva to sit by my feet. And a lot of airlines will hold those particular seats for people until the last minute to make sure if there's anyone with special needs or with a service dog, that they kind of keep those spaces until the end. So that's always a good thing to know about. I also ask for a refrigerator in my room at the hotel because I have to have my own milk substitute, and Ziva's canned dog food, which incidentally looks a lot like a bomb when you go through security. So I always try to put those into my checked baggage so they can see what it is and not have them opening up anything I have to check because it's not real good. Both my caregiver, Ross, over there filming us, he's my husband, he and I both know the provisions of the ADA and the service animal rules and regulations, and we're prepared to educate people when necessary, which we often have to do. And I've practiced the phrase until I know it now. I am a person with a disability. Requesting a reasonable accommodation under the ADA. Now, one of the problems is when you're in an airport, you've gone through security, and the dog says, I want to go out. You may have to, during a layover, you may have to take her outside. And if you have to go through security to do that, because not every airport has a pet relief area in a secure zone, we always go to the TSA person and find out who is it that we ask for when we come back in, so we don't have to get screened again. Mike or Bob or Jane or somebody will be there, and we ask for them by name, and then they take us through, they expedite us. We still have to go through the screening thing, but we don't have to go through the whole take your shoes off kind of rigmarole. And we make arrangements ahead of time. That way we don't have to wait in line and miss our connecting flight. So I think that we've talked about a lot of strategies that will help us to plan ahead and ask for accommodations that we might need, and hopefully that will limit stress. So
We're on to Ken.
we're on to Ken with limiting stress.
No, I'm still on ask for accommodations.
sorry.
Although I know.
Ask for accommodations and limit my
I think
stress.
at this point, everybody here is gonna ask for a wheelchair the next time they go to the airport, whether they need it or not.
We're really not plugging,
Yeah,
for
but there are
sales.
so many benefits I've found certainly for doing that, between speeding you through security and avoiding crowds, getting a designated helper if you don't have a travel companion with you. There are a lot of benefits to the wheelchair. Fatigue, and managing fatigue, which is huge for me, so knowing that I'm not gonna have those long walks in the airport is important. At security, I do always make a point of pointing out my leg brace, which today is under my pants. Usually I wear it outside my pants if I'm traveling, so that it is pretty apparent, but I feel like it does need to be singled out in a way. I'll also often mention that they might see something strange in my head if they do a scan, although that doesn't seem to faze them very much.
I actually couldn't wait to see if my titanium screws were gonna go off, but not
No.
as exciting as yours.
Titanium
Yeah, I think
stuff is all
yeah.
I
compliant.
know.
The
Wasn't
other accommodations I focus on are at hotels, like Rory was talking about. Having a handicap accessible room is the safest thing for me, although I do make a point of traveling with my suction cup grab bar in case the layout of a particular bathroom doesn't suit my right-handed needs.
Three of those.
And it's not as good as a built-in, but it's surprisingly strong. That's it for me for asking for accommodation.
Okay, so we have 5 minutes left,
We still have,
and I know that we still have other things that
But I think we should maybe take questions if people have questions.
So let's, so I will monitor limiting,
My question was, how much would you recommend for a tip on a wheelchair on a plane?
you do the tipping, what do you tip?
Well, $5, I mean, that's fair to take,
Yeah.
because unless you're got lots of money, you feel like being generous, go for that. But I think $5 is a good tip, because sometimes when they leave you by the gate and somebody else is gonna take you from the gate to the plane,
Right.
and you feel obliged to tip again,
Yeah,
so you might give that person $2 or $1.
Right.
So have lots of change in your pocket.
All right.
You're gonna need it, and they deserve it.
alright.
Yes.
Have you found that some airlines are better than others, like you have a favorite say?
I haven't.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. You might have issues with some and not with others, but when it comes to disability,
Yeah.
they do a great job.
At least in this country,
Yeah.
they are required by the Airline Access Act
Mm-hmm.
to allow not just service animals, but emotional support animals to travel. Just as they have a right to live with someone, even if they're not actually performing a task, as long as they can accommodate them safely. They're required to do that, and they're pretty good. Airline personnel are pretty well informed about the laws.
Yeah, and in this country,
Here,
whether it's
yeah.
at an airport or not, if somebody asks, there's only 2 things that they can legally ask. What is your disability? Are you disabled? and what is your disability? They can't get
They
into
can't
a
ask that,
zillion.
actually.
They can't even ask the
No,
disability?
they can ask, they can
They-
ask you, they can ask me only, is this a service dog? And what does she do?
Yeah,
You don't have to explain your disability.
Yeah.
TSA, if you say, I have a disability, I'd like to be hand screened or whatever,
Yeah.
they have to accommodate that, because
Yeah.
they're not allowed to inquire.
I
And they
thankfully
know that.
haven't, I don't have the service dog with me. I have a wooden service dog that is my little wooden Morpheus who my mom carved, my boxer that I miss. I so wish I had
So he's
him
with
through
you,
this.
yeah.
But they can't ask me when I nicely ask them, can I pre-board? When I explain to them my sensory issues, my pain issues, needing to pre-board for certain things. I've, basically just had well, you don't look like you had a brain surgery. Again, that's why we all seriously need to speak up. Take advantage of, not a nice term, ask what they can do for you.
Because that's what they're there for.
It's a service.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't actually know if it's the airlines that manage like the wheelchair service. I feel like that's the airport
Yeah.
But it's arranged through the airline.
General, yeah.
Yeah.
when you.
When you book your flight, you tell them
Yeah.
and they arrange it. And I know, at least in Portland, many TSA offices have a special person. You can request that you be escorted through security. You can request someone to meet you there. The guy's name was Mike that we talked to.
But that's important to do that with your reservations.
Yes.
Because if you go to the airport, in the old days, you could just tip the fellow $10 and
Yeah.
let you go all the way to the gate. That's
Yeah.
wrong.
It doesn't work.
So when you do your reservations, make sure, say, I need to escort so-and-so person to the gate, and they'll take all your information, so when you go there, you won't have an issue.
Right.
Yeah. Oops, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, Tom?
Yes,
I
Tom.
want to say one thing. I don't see any of you with only one hand. And maybe, that's true.
Yeah, Ken,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, Mr. Ken.
One hand makes an additional
Mm.
problem
Yes.
that takes a fair amount of experience.
Yeah.
The other thing is, just so you know, we last February went to New Caledonia in
Oh, yes.
just this side of Australia. And it involved 3 flights. One was to Texas, one was across to Sydney, which was almost 17 hours, and one was back a little bit, like 2 more hours the other direction. And we had our bags were left somewhere between where we were and where we were going. And in spite of it all, we did remarkably well. So, in spite of it all,
Yep.
hang in there.
That's
And it'll all
another-
get better
It
over time.
really is possible.
Yeah.
And if you know yourself, it really does help you to plan ahead.
It does.
And if you plan ahead effectively enough and you ask for the accommodations that you need, you should be able to limit your stress somewhat. Although it's still stressful to travel, it should be more doable and more enjoyable.
And up here are the checklists for packing for you to come and take, the travel brochures, which highlight the points that we spoke about. And also on the travel brochure, there's, and this is not a plug for this, but there's emerginghorizons.com, which is a specific site for people with disabilities to travel. So it specifically gives you all sorts of vacations for people with disabilities, different ideas of things to do, and all sorts of things that you might want to know about your accommodations. And up here is also File of Life. So please come on up
Help
and
yourselves.
help yourselves.
And another plug, not for duct tape, when you get to the carousel, know your baggage.
Yes.
This is my carry-on, but you can simply take some duct tape.
And she was just packing for a few hours.
This
This
is
is
this
just
is my
for today.
carry-on. But my large bag for checked is bright blue. Do something that also limits stress. So you're not waiting, you're not worried about catching your flight. But thank you very
you.
much.
Do you know what you just did to me in this meeting?
No,
Huh?
no.
I've been home and back. I left my toolbox